All right, PA Football News. This is Lindsey Bennett. We're here with the grand poobah of high school football in the country, Jim Roth. Jim, you have 14 state titles, been to 22 state finals, won 16 consecutive district titles. Your numbers are like video game numbers. What creates the passion to keep going?
Oh, I just enjoy doing it. I mean, just the little things, getting ready for the season. There's a lot of things also as you get older that become more of an annoyance, like the busy work, the paperwork, the managing things that you have to manage as a high school coach. That if you were coaching in college or a higher level, you have people on your staff that take care of that. But
Yep.
At the high school level, it's still about the high school coach has to be the equipment manager. They have to be the transportation director. They have to be the secretary.
Yep.
You got to kind of do it all now. I mean, you get help from your assistants, but ultimately the head coach ends up putting a lot of that on themselves, I think, which is kind of the norm for most high school programs. But as far as the passion, I just still enjoy the overall nature of the game and being around it. And, even after a season like last year, which was a disappointing season for us,
Mm-hmm.
It didn't really, it probably even made it even more, I guess, more enjoyable starting this year, and just more motivation coming into the season because we didn't have one of our better years. So, that kind of added to it. But even after, a string of winning state titles and the role we were on there, and I think that's one of the things that's helped our program is that our staff has always been able to kind of maintain that enthusiasm and that desire year after year. And, we would celebrate those titles, but, shortly after the banquet, in the winter, we would kind of turn the page and start looking to the spring. And it was like, we didn't talk about that previous year anymore. It was a new chapter. And
blank page.
And our staff has done a good job of coaching the kids in a sense that you didn't prove anything, because this is a different team, and you don't want to look back on what you did previously, and because complacency is the thing that will get you in an athletic program if you don't keep looking ahead. And the kids can sense it too. If the coaches are not focused day to day and still on task with this particular season, kids pick up on that, and it has an effect on them.
Yeah. And there's a reason the windshield is so big and the rearview mirror is so small.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, how did you get to Southern Columbia?
Well, I graduated from Lock Haven in '79. I did some substitute teaching and a little bit of coaching at Line Mountain High School when I first graduated. I had no connection with this school district at all at that time. I was a graduate of Shikellamy High School in Sunbury. And I knew the coach down there, Paul Stamen, who was the head wrestling and football coach at the time. And he talked to me about helping out. He needed a junior high wrestling coach. And I was right out of college, and I had background in wrestling. I had wrestled at Shikellamy, which was a state power back in the 70s and 80s and into the 90s. They've dropped off some. But I went down there and coached junior high wrestling for him. I substituted in the high school. The school year ended, and we both thought that I had a very good chance of getting a permanent job because I was a health and phys ed major with a degree in that area. Line Mountain was going to have an opening. Paul had a lot of respect in the school district and the community, and he was really pushing for me. And it didn't work out. There was another individual that had substituted in the district, and I think was a Line Mountain native from the district, and they ended up getting the job. And so that's how I ended up here. But the other part of that it may not have worked out this way is the fact that I was so convinced that I was getting a job at Line Mountain. And again, Paul Stamen being the head coach and the standing that he had in the district, with what he was telling me, I felt very confident. And I had heard in the middle of the summer, I got a call from before that first school year that I started here, I got a call from my former wrestling coach at Shikellamy, Phil Lockoff, who was the head wrestling coach there for many years back when the program was, a state power. And he told me he ran into Jay McGinley, who was the current wrestling coach at this school at that time. He had run into him at some summer event, and the health and phys ed teacher here and head football coach left in the middle of the summer, like in July. So he was putting some feelers out there in the area, trying to find a potential coach to fill this health and phys ed position. So he contacted Phil Lockoff. Phil called me, and to be honest with you, I told Phil, I said, no, I don't think I'm interested in going there. I said, they have a terrible sports program. I really don't want to get involved. And they did. Most of the programs here really struggled. The girls' programs at that time were very strong. There was a woman here for many, many years, and she was ahead of her time. Like, she was doing things that none of the other girls' sports were doing. So she coached 3 sports: field hockey, basketball, and softball. And they were very, very successful. And but the boys were not. So I told Phil, I said, I don't think. And then before we ended the conversation, he made a comment somewhere along the lines that, well, these teaching jobs are tough. He goes, and you never know what's going to happen. He said, so I wouldn't count on the Line Mountain thing happening, and I would maybe put your name in there just in case it doesn't work out. So that's what I did. I kind of threw my name in. I know it was like a last minute thing. And when I was contacted that I didn't get the job at Line Mountain, I was really surprised about that. And had got an interview here. I still remember it. I was surprised going through the interview because I think about 90% of the questions dealt with athletics and not teaching health and phys ed. So they were really looking for a coach here also. So I ended up getting the job, and they had just named that year, they had just named Andy Ulickney from Shenandoah Valley area, from Shenandoah Valley is the high school, but from Shenandoah, PA is where he was from. He was like a second-year English teacher here, and he got the head coaching job. And so my first year I started here was his second year as a coach. And there were 2 other coaches on the varsity staff, and they were also both in their second year of teaching and coaching here. I was in my first year. So we had 4 coaches on the staff, 3 in their second year, 1 in their first year. So we didn't learn from anybody. We learned trial and error.
And we're talking about football, right?
Yeah.
Because you were going to take the wrestling job at Line Mountain.
Well, I was actually going to take the phys ed job. Like, we had talked, Paul's like, we'll figure out where you're going to coach, or whatever. He said, but I need help, and we can cross that bridge, when we come to it. But it was the main thing there concern was getting the teaching job and getting in the district, and then going from there. So we really hadn't even decided exactly how that was going to play out as far as coaching positions.
I got you. So you got the job here. In the first couple of years, you guys didn't have any experience amongst you, and you guys were just kind of drawing plays in the sand.
Feeling our way, drawing on some previous experience. Now, the other 3 coaches had not played in college. I did. They all played in high school, but we just kind of drew on our experiences playing. And I always tell people this, like, when I started out coaching, I probably leaned on some of my former coaches as much for what I don't want to do as opposed to what I want to do. In other words, I was, I think I always, in the back of my mind, thought I would coach, because when I played, even in high school and then through college, I kind of always was picturing myself, running a program and doing this or doing that. And I was in at times some bad situations, especially in college. Lock Haven was going through a lot of transition back then. They weren't very good at all. I saw 3 different head coaches in the time I was there. So I kind of looked at the way things were being done in programs I was in, and a lot of what I had in mind as far as how I wanted to run a program was based on not necessarily what other coaches did in programs I was on. Well, it was based on what they did, but I was thinking I would do it different. Like I wouldn't do this way, I wouldn't do that way. I would do things different. So
And that's
I got some positives from high school at Shikellamy, but a lot of, I was in some programs that struggled, and so it was what it was. And
yeah. And that's kind of like life. Like you see people doing stuff and you go, mental note, don't do that,
Yeah.
So you have 5 attributes from a guy and you go, I like these 2, but the other 3, nah, it's not going to happen,
Yeah.
And that's how you make your way in life, and you process of elimination through different sports and stuff.
Right.
Because I think anybody that has played a sport kind of feels that same way when they're playing like college football. They're like, man, I would never do it that way.
Yeah.
But I know the way I wouldn't do it if I ever do get in that position, just like you said. So then you came here and you were an assistant for 4 years.
Right.
And then what happened to the head coach then?
He had enough. He just, I guess in his mind, he didn't see himself as a long-term coach.
Yeah.
He liked football. He got into broadcasting then, and he stayed with football till this day. He broadcast with Jim Doyle. They've been doing it for decades at Berwick High School. During George Curry's whole stint through the 80s and 90s, they were doing Berwick play-by-play, and they also do Bloomsburg University.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, he's been a color guy on radio for Berwick and for Bloom U for decades. So he kind of get into that.
Yeah.
He was an English teacher. He was a talker, and so he enjoyed doing that. And he lived in Shenandoah. He had just had a young child at that time, and so I think he just looked at it like the commitment that needs to be made moving forward. He wasn't interested in staying with it.
Yeah, he wasn't interested in putting that much time in. Because he had a family coming up. So then after he goes away, you become the head coach. Did they have other applicants, or did they just say, Jim, you're going to be the coach?
I don't remember how that played out exactly. I don't remember if they opened the position up or if they kind of did it internally.
Yeah.
And then when I applied, they agreed to give me the job. I can't remember if there was a formal, if they formally opened the position up.
Yeah.
But it was after the 4 years. And so it was 80 through 83 seasons. And I actually served as defensive coordinator for them. And then in 84, I took over, which was my first year as head coach.
And how'd that go?
We did well that year. I think we finished 10-3.
Wow.
Yeah, we won 10 games that year. But now we had, over that 4-year period, we made significant strides in the program. I specifically remember, I can't remember the records of every year that I've coached, but I remember the first 4. We were 0-12. We were 6-5-1. We were 9-3. And we were 12-0.
Wow.
They were the 4 years.
That's quite a progression.
Yeah, so we had a very consistent, solid progression over the 4 years. And then 94 or 84, I took over. And again, we won 10 games that year. And we had a good season. And I can't remember how that ended up in the playoffs that year. I think we got beat. See, it was tricky back then because it was before the state playoffs.
Yep.
So a lot of the playoff structure was basically either Eastern Conference or, I don't even think they had districts back then at that point.
I think districts came along in 85 or 86.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it was Eastern Conference, and the Eastern Conference, which covered a lot of Central and Eastern PA, was very big. There were a ton of schools.
Yeah.
So it was based on rating and points. And I don't think we qualified. With the losses that we had, we didn't qualify for districts or for the Eastern Conference that year. I don't believe, but it was a solid start to the season. And then, we went on to have pretty consistent years through the 80s. We lost in the Eastern Conference final one year. It was 86, I believe, to Mono area, who was very good. They won the title. And then we lost, I think it was 87 to Tri-Valley. They won the title. And then 88, we won the Eastern Conference Championship. And then after 88 is when we started to enter the state playoffs.
Yep.
It was 88, I believe, was the last year that we participated in an Eastern Conference tournament. And then we went into the state tournament after that.
Yep.
There was a couple-year transition there where you couldn't automatically qualify for districts and compete in districts for an automatic berth in the state playoffs. There were a couple years where the rating played into it also, because in 93 we lost to South Williamsport, and we had a good record, and we lost to South Williamsport in a very close game in the regular season. Mm-hmm. And they went from our area, though they chose the Eastern Conference playoffs. Mm-hmm. And the way it was structured is we couldn't follow them. Mm-hmm. So we went into districts, we won districts, but they got the berth into the state playoffs. Yep. It was rather complicated because you had two different playoff systems, and one team could block another team from going into it. And South was really good that year. They finished the state runner-up. They lost to South Park in the state championship game. We were at it and watched it. They were ahead with less than 2 minutes to go, in South Park threw a long bomb for a touchdown and pulled it out in like the last 2 minutes of the game. Wow. South was very close to winning the title, but they didn't get it done. Yep. And then it was shortly after that, I think, actually I think it was the next year in 94 when we won our first state title. I think that was the first year where everything had to go through districts. Yep. You couldn't go into Eastern Conference and compete in the state tournament. You had to go into districts first. Yep.
That's kind of where the Eastern Conference became the secondary title. Yeah. Kind of like the NIT of the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, for sure. It went downhill at that point.
Yeah. And then you got on a run starting in 94, and you've been to 22 state finals. There's only been 34 state finals so far in Pennsylvania. And you've been to more than half of them, 2/3 of them.
Yeah. So, well, it's a very unique history, and the way things played out, it's kind of amazing to me when I think back on it, the way things went, because the first time we got to a state championship game, we won it, and then we finished runner-up. The next 6 times we got to a state championship game, we finished runner-up. We were runner-up in 95, the next year, lost 6-0 to Farrell. The following year, we met Farrell again in the finals, lost 14-12.
Wow.
97, we did not make it. We lost to Riverside in the Eastern final, and they ended up losing in the state finals, real close game late. And then we lost 3 of the next 4 years, we lost to Rochester. And they were pretty close games. And then we also lost a game to a school called Southside Beaver one year. Again, all those games were close, but we came out on the short end of all of them. I mean, if you looked at the final scores, like the worst score of the 6 losses was a game against Rochester where we lost 18-0. And that team that year, I believe that was 98. That might have been the best. It was one of the best defensive teams we ever had.
Really?
It was a phenomenal defensive team. It was a 6-0 game into the fourth quarter.
Wow.
And we really put our defense in a bad position because we just couldn't move the ball. We had no offense. So we just kept putting our defense out there, putting them out there. And eventually they punched another one in, and then there was a turnover or a field position thing, and they scored a third time. It ended up 18-0, but it was a very close game in terms of, just the matchup of the two teams.
Yep.
We just couldn't generate any offense, and that was our biggest problem when we played Rochester the years we lost to them. They were not an explosive team. They were a lot like us. They were a run-oriented team, but they had a lot of speed. They were very physical. And, we just had trouble matching up with them, especially up front.
Yeah.
And so we were losing these tough games to them. And at that point, we had, as I said, finished runner-up 6 times. It was very frustrating because you would have great seasons. we would beat teams in the state playoffs and in the Eastern finals that had built their programs, their current teams for like a 3 or 4 year period where they had outstanding senior classes and they had very good teams. And we were able to overcome these teams all those years in the East, but just couldn't win that state championship game.
Yep.
So it got to be very frustrating, and it was not fun. But somehow we stayed motivated year after year, came back and kept putting good teams on the field, and even you didn't have the social media then like you did now.
Yeah.
Fortunately.
Yeah.
or it would have been even a lot worse. But
Yeah.
there was a lot of negativity out there because, it was like, you were the Buffalo Bills or the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
You can't win the big game.
Yeah.
Although it wasn't quite to that extent because we won the state title the first year we were there.
Yeah.
But when you go the next 6 times and you finish
Yep.
runner-up
You're
the
the
next 6
bridesmaid,
times,
yeah.
you start to hear a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I know we got to a point there in the early 2000s where, in my mind, and we would talk about it as a staff, like the only way to erase that bad taste of finishing runner-up that many times is to win a bunch of them. That's the only way we're going to get rid of it. Well, now around here, like, most people have no idea that even happened.
Yeah.
It's long forgotten.
Yep.
But we lived through it all,
Yeah.
and experienced it all. And, that was my mindset. Now, did I think we were going to be able to do what we've done? Absolutely not. Nobody's going to conceive that you're going to have that kind of success.
No, because there's too many variables.
But that was the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
And not necessarily to win 13 more, but to at least win enough more that we could kind of erase that.
Lost. Yeah.
Erase the taste of those losses or whatever.
Yep.
So, that's something that's lost on a lot of people just because it was long enough ago, and we had so much success since then. But a lot of people either didn't even know that occurred,
Yeah.
unless they went into the PIAA record books and saw it,
Yeah. Yep.
or they had forgotten it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then, like, through the years of coaching football, how many players that come, like, certain situations of a player that you go, that was John so-and-so that made that play and was a significant play in a game for a big win? You have many of them in your mind or no?
Not a lot of those. It's more of the teams.
Yeah.
And it's probably the reason is because there's been so many games.
Yeah.
And there's been so many big games.
Yeah.
And fortunately, our state titles, certainly not the last one, but a lot of our state titles we won handily, by big scores.
Yeah.
So, when you think about your biggest games, when you've played in 22 of them, you're gonna think of those games, you know?
Yep.
And so in most of those wins, we didn't need a big play here or there to pull it out, or there wasn't. But there are a few of them that were pretty competitive. The one year against Wilmington, when they were very good, they were undefeated. They had a line that averaged almost 300 pounds. We were much smaller than them, and I remember that particular year. That was a memorable game because we couldn't match up with them up front. They were just so much bigger and stronger than us.
Yeah.
So they would drive the ball down the field, and we would just buckle down and eventually get a stop. And then we would get the ball back, and we may not have a real long drive or whatever, but Gavin Garcia was on the team then, and I'm going to say he might have had like 3 touchdown runs over 60 yards that year. So we weren't consistently driving the ball, but he was one of those guys that, even if they're controlling the line of scrimmage, it could be you get a first down or 2, you punt, you get a 3 and out, you punt, but then, the next play goes 60, 70 yards for a touchdown because he was so explosive. And then that would break their back because they're driving the ball and they're not able to put it in, and then we go for like a 60-yard run.
They're running 8-9 minutes off the clock, have to turn it over, and then you guys quick strike. So me and my buddy called Gavin Garcia the District 4 Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
Because you might stop him -3, -380.
Yep.
Yep. He was so much, to me, in my lifetime, he was the funnest guy to watch play in District 4 that I've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah, he was explosive and elusive, and he had those stop on a dime moves,
Yep.
jump cuts, all that stuff, like a Barry Sanders, like
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yep.
And so he kind of stood out in that game. And then the last game that we won, we pulled that out right at the end against Westinghouse. We had to score right at the end of the game.
That was an amazing game. It all came down to that 4th and 15. Remember that?
Yep.
And there was a penalty, and they were crying. Oh, it's not.
So, yeah, and that Blake Wise, who was our quarterback for 2.5 years, and we weren't much of a throwing team then, but like he stood out there because he made that play on that 4th down.
Yep.
And even though we didn't throw the ball a lot, we didn't ask him to make a lot of big plays. If he doesn't make that play, if we don't execute that play,
the game's over.
Exactly, it's over. And then, ironically, too, Carter Madden, who was our number 3 running back that year, and he had some injury issues. And he was very frustrated because of some injuries that he had. He didn't get to play that much defense that year, and he loved to play defense. He played more defense the year before. But he had a solid year as a senior, again, fighting through some injuries. And he was basically behind the other 2 backs, Loudon Murphy, who's now a safety at Blum University, and then the other Garcia, Garrett Garcia, who's also playing at Bloomsburg University. He was our fullback. So they were our 2 leading rushers. But Carter Madden is the guy that made that last run that was able to put the ball in the end zone. So it was kind of neat the way it played out because he was disappointed that he didn't have more of a role, throughout the season, but yet he makes that one play that everybody's going to remember forever.
Erases all that past. And I think of all the state finals I watched you guys play, that 4th and 15 just stands out in my mind as one of the greatest plays in the state finals, because we go watch the state finals every year, all of them. Yeah. And that's one of the plays that in 50 years, if I'm still alive, I'm still going to remember that play, because that was the difference, You kept the drive alive, and you guys went down and scored with a little time left, and they had 2 plays, I think, and then it was over.
Yeah, that was one of the most memorable. Obviously, it was the most recent 2 years ago. Yeah. But that's the only one that we've won in that way. Yeah. Where we had to score right at the end of the game like that.
Yep. And going into that season, I don't think very many people picked you to be in the state finals, which is ironic because you won. That would have been 6 in a row up until that point. Right. And that would have been the 7th one, and everybody just, there's no way they're going to win the 7th one.
Yeah, I look back on it. We're surprised when I say we, our staff, because a lot of the guys that are with me have been with me a long time. But when we lost the group in 2019, when that senior class left, I mean, we had 4 Division I players on that team. In a school our size, you're going to be very successful when those kids are. If you have any other bodies on the field at all, you're going to be very successful in a school our size. So we had that run when, we were just, we were real good, very dominant for those 3 years, really 4 years. But those kids, when they were seniors, not when they were seniors, the opposite, when they were freshmen, we weren't expected to do a whole lot. We made it to the finals that year. And we ended up losing in the finals. We got beat pretty handily. But again, we were starting a bunch of freshmen. And then from their sophomore year on, they just ran the table.
They left a bad taste in their mouth, and they said, "You wait till next year when we come back."
That was Steel Valley.
And I remember that.
And Steel Valley was very good that year. They were a really good team. But when they graduated in 2019, nothing surprised us during their run, but we didn't expect to win another 4 in a row. That was. There's, with the kids coming up in the program, we didn't have, these elite athletes, these Division I players coming up through. And in fact, for a year or two, in fact, we were talking to our team today about it. We were very undersized, like in 2020, 2021. We didn't have a lot of big linemen. We were playing with some small guys up front. And they just did a great job of playing the game and executing their positions and doing what they were coached to do and what they needed to do. And, we were able to just keep it rolling. But it certainly was not the same kind of team talent-wise as what, graduated in 19.
Yeah.
So
that was like a dream team.
Yeah.
With all them Division I players and the other players that participated. It was like the perfect, like, AA team. Like, how do you even pencil a team that good into a AA school? It'd be tough,
I always told everybody it was, it's a once in a career team.
Yeah.
In a school this size. So.
Yep. And then you got, like, up where I'm from, you guys have dominated for so long. People were like, oh, they recruit down there. And I always say, it doesn't matter what they're doing, they're winning. And when you win, it erases everything else. So it's like you said about you lost how many state finals and then you won a bunch. So that gets put on the back shelf.
Yep.
And nobody remembers that,
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier to forget it.
Absolutely. And I think watching what you guys have done and like your video game numbers is just mind-boggling. When you look at it on paper, it just boggles your mind. You have 506 wins, 73 losses, 2 ties. That's just like cartoonish.
Well, it's something that I don't look at it as an individual thing because it's so. The sport takes so many people to be successful.
Yep.
And obviously it happened over many, many years. So there's many coaches that have played a role. There's many boosters that have come and gone, hundreds and hundreds of players, support staff. And so, everything has been able to come together, for a long period of time. But, it's one of those things where I always just sum it up by, when I get specific questions about how we've been able to maintain. And that's probably the thing that I'm proudest of is the fact that we've been able to do it over such a long period of time.
Yep.
So whether it was just falling short in the playoffs and having a good season where you win 10 games or 11 games or falling short in the state championship game or winning a state title, but to have that level of success year after year, here you have a year like we had last year, or even if you have a good year and you fall short, people are very disappointed. And it could be the kind of season that some programs would
die for.
I'd be going on a fire truck ride,
Yeah.
So
and the thing is, with you guys is you guys set the bar so darn high that you lost in the district finals last year, right?
Yeah.
You lost in the district finals. That's a failure for you guys because you guys are used to winning state titles.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a great problem to have when you stand back and look at it from the outside. Because how many, like you just said, how many teams would love to have that problem?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you've set the bar so high that that's not the success you've.
Yeah. When I look back on the history of PA football and from the time we started in the playoffs to present day, again, that's the thing that I'm most pleased about is how we've been able to maintain. So it's never really dropped off significantly. And when I think back of the history, there have been so many good programs across the state. This area alone, when Mount Carmel and Berwick had their runs for a period of time. Central Bucks West. St. Joe's Prep right now is another school that is on a tremendous run. At the 6A level, but most of the programs have come and gone. And there hasn't been that sustained success over a long period of time. Manheim Central, even though they weren't winning a lot of state titles, they were one of the most successful programs in the state for a lot of years. And but to maintain the level we've been at and to keep that going for so long, that's the thing that really makes you the proudest about the history of the program.
When in your career did you find out the secret sauce to getting to state finals? Do you think it was a melding pot of a bunch of seasons together and what the chemistry is, or did one day you just woke up and went, this is what we need to do and we're going to be successful?
You mean to turn those runner-ups into championships? There's no question about what we thought we needed to do and what we ended up doing, and it was all about getting bigger, faster, and stronger.
Yep.
It's not the X's and O's. That's not what wins this game.
No.
And I see so many programs that struggle, and so many young coaches that go into programs like, take over a struggling program.
Mm-hmm.
And in many cases, looking at the way things are run and not knowing everything that happens in a program, but just when you see them play, or if it's a team that you do play, you get a feel for it.
Yeah.
And I just think that there's so many programs and so many coaches that put way too much emphasis on the X's and O's.
Yeah.
Because the game's about, as the cliche goes, it's about blocking and tackling.
It's simple.
And, we knew that we're losing to Farrell because they're faster, they're stronger. I mean, you can throw bigger into there because it works into the equation.
Yeah.
You can't make a kid that's 6 foot be 6'4".
Yeah.
But you can make a kid that's 180 be 215.
Yep.
So height is one thing you have no control over, but you can make everybody bigger and thicker.
Absolutely.
By strength training. So the strength training and the speed training is definitely where we got over the hump. That's where we made the difference. We could not match up with some of those really athletic teams at that time, and we got better in those areas. Then all of a sudden we could match up.
Yeah.
And that's when we started to win. Before I would get off like something that jumps out or stands out in the state championship, and I've said this many a time, there were a couple years where we had really impressive wins in terms of what we had, what the other team had, and winning the game.
Yeah.
And they would be like 2002. That was the year we broke the streak, and we beat Rochester that year. And they physically had a better team than us, and we beat them like 34-7.
Wow.
So it wasn't, and then the other one was in 2015 when we mercy rolled Aliquippa in the state championship game, and they had more ability on their team than what we had, but we had 5 turnovers, and that was the most opportunistic team, and the best team chemistry I think of any team I ever coached was 2015. We didn't have Division I athletes. We didn't have a bunch of guys that went on and played in college, but they just played unbelievable football as a team. When somebody needed to make a play, somebody stepped up and made it.
Yep.
And so I always talk about the run. We played Berks Catholic out of Reading. We played Philly West Catholic out of Philadelphia. And we played Aliquippa in the finals in consecutive weeks. And all 3 of those games and all 3 of the teams that we faced were probably better football teams than us athletically. And we won those 3 games in a row. And that year really proved to me that, sometimes you can be lesser athletically, but if your kids play as a team and they really have that team concept and there's great team chemistry, you can overcome teams that might be better than you athletically.
Absolutely. And by me just being a fan going to all these state finals and through the playoffs, you can see that discipline plays a huge part. Because a lot of these teams that have great athletes and way more talent than these other teams, they have 0 discipline.
Yeah.
So they go out there and they're like a bunch of animals just doing their own thing. They don't play as a team, and they end up getting beat 35-0. And they had a way better team on paper, but they're not disciplined.
Yeah.
And they don't have a culture like you have built here. Like back in the beginning, you build a culture, and as you've come through, the strength and the speed and all that stuff has grown into the melding pot of the culture you've built here. And that's why when the bar has set so high, because of the culture you've made, I think. And Troy is doing that now with their young people.
Yeah.
They set the bar high, following kind of the pattern you guys made, and they're taking it to the next level like you guys do. But and you guys are very similar teams. It's so funny because you guys are not finesse teams. You guys are punch in the mouth for 4 quarters, and if you beat us, you beat us. But by God, we're going to stand there toe-to-toe, and you're going to know you got hit.
Yeah. But you make a good point, and that's absolutely true, that sometimes the talented teams hurt themselves just because of the fact that, they don't have that discipline level. They don't have that execution level that they need.
Yep.
And when you get a team like we had that year, if the other team doesn't have some of those qualities to the same level we have a huge advantage because our kids just played so well together on that particular team that, it could make a difference in a game, and it certainly did in those games that year. But yeah, it's interesting because, the trend is as things changed over the years, over the decades, to the passing game, and that became more sexy for everybody, and everybody wants to, spread the field and spread it out, run and shoot and all that kind of stuff. When I get around other coaches and even coaches that coach at bigger schools and maybe put down a program where you're more old school and you're more just running the ball and trying to play good defense and so forth. I don't care where they're from. I know from watching the state finals over the years, you see very, very few teams win a state championship game in Pennsylvania that go out there and do nothing but throw the ball all over the place. Even the teams that run spread, they run spread formations, but they end up running the ball. Even if they have really good quarterbacks that can throw, they end up running the ball with the quarterback more than they end up throwing it with them.
And they're using the spread formation to off-balance your defense so they can get alleys to run in. And that's what's become fun at the high school and the college level, is watching the quarterbacks that are athletic and run. That really makes the game so much funner to watch, as opposed to a guy that drops back 3 steps and lets it go, or 7-step drops and gets sacked half the time. Having an athlete, your best athlete at quarterback, man, it has really changed the high school football game, I feel, over the last 10 to 15 years.
There's no doubt. And anytime we play that kind of guy, that kind of quarterback that's a dual threat, I always tell pregame interviews and so forth, I always tell the media, that's an X factor in the game. It makes it that much tougher. Our kid we have right now runs the ball well. He will, he didn't have a ton of yards last year, but he ran quite a bit. He was only a sophomore, but he'll run the ball a lot. And we have a balanced backfield with 3 good backs returning, but when you can inject that quarterback into it, it just makes it that much tougher.
Absolutely.
Because whether you're doing it off option like Troy does, or you're doing it off, we do it more off just like misdirection, keeps off misdirection, that type of thing. It just gives that defense one other thing they have to contend with. I always like to bring up the George Curry had a saying, and some people from this area that are really knowledgeable football people might remember, but most people don't. They'll remember like a Ron Pallas or a Dave Robbins or Kelchner, some of these Division I quarterbacks that Berwick had, but they don't remember that George ran all his quarterbacks. Even Ron Pallas, who was a huge drop back guy. If there were key situations in a game where they needed a first down or they needed 5 yards, he had no problem calling his number and having him run the ball, because he knew the defense wasn't keying on him to run the ball as much as other guys. But George had this saying, he used to say, running the quarterback's like having 12 players on offense. That's what he used to always say. And essentially it just gives you an advantage, because now you haven't, if the quarterback runs, now you have an extra guy, whether you're going to put him somewhere just to remove a defender or he's going to become an extra blocker. It gives you a 1-player advantage as opposed to your quarterback just being a guy that can hand the ball off.
Makes a huge difference. It adds a whole nother dimension to your offense. So how does this year's football team look going? We're here in a week before preseason starts. How does your team for 2025 look going into the season?
Well, we feel much better than we did last year, and that's simply a matter of experience. We were very young coming into the season last year. We were hopeful that kids would develop and respond to the level that we could make another run of the state title, even though we were going to be very young. It didn't work out. Things didn't come together the way we had hoped they would, but there was enough talent on that team that we thought there was a potential for it. And there's certainly enough talent coming back that, we feel much better that we'll have an improved team. How far we can go or what level we can get to, again, depends on how much these guys develop and how well they come together as a team, and just how we progress. And then you always have the X factor with injuries.
Yep.
If your key people stay healthy, you're always going to get a guy out here or there for a period of time. You've got to be able to have somebody step up and do the job when that happens.
Yep.
I would have to say, coming into the season, even though we have a good group of skilled players returning on offense, I'm very happy about the way the line has developed in the offseason as far as their work through the offseason in the weight room and so forth, and just the way they've looked in the preseason. We have good size up front. We have a little bigger size overall, both offensively and defensively, than we've had in a number of years. And a lot of these guys were starters last year, so they got a year under their belt. And you do some things even in the summer and the off season where you kind of get a feel. You can do some 11-on-11 drills against other schools.
Yeah.
You obviously don't have pads on, but the one team will hold shields and the kids are wearing helmets. So you are coming off the ball trying to move a defender. The defender's trying to resist, the offensive player.
Yeah.
So you can kind of get a feel. And with some of the work we had against other schools in the off season, we felt real good about the way our lines have looked on both sides of the ball. So, we feel that, we can make significant improvement over last year, but it'll be challenging. We open up with a very tough opener against Wyomissing, who's a quad A power, from the Reading area.
Yep.
And then Loyal Sock, who's usually a strong team in our league. They were down a little bit last year. They have a lot of people coming back, and we have them week 2. And then early in the season, towards the middle of the season, we pick up big rival games with Mount Carmel and Danville. And then 2 other teams on our schedule that should be real tough opponents this year. We beat one of them last year close. We lost to one of them last year close. In fact, the one we lost was in the last play of the game, which was one of the worst losses I've experienced, just in the nature of the way we lost the game. But both of these teams were solid last year, and both of them have a lot of people back, and that would be Mifflinburg and Montoursville. Montoursville's been a traditionally solid program over the years, and they were very young last year. Mifflinburg has some really outstanding athletes right now. They have a quarterback that looks like a tight end, but he's a runner, physical guy, big, can throw the ball, runs really well. They have some receivers that they put on the outside that look more like tight ends that run well. So they gave us fits last year throwing the ball, and they have a lot of people coming back again this year. So we have a challenging schedule, and then when we look at the postseason, it's in Double A in District 4. It's going to be Mount Carmel and Troy without question. They're going to be there. Loyal Sock might have something to say about this year. They should be pretty good. I don't know if there's anybody else that's gonna get into the mix, but at this point, I know Troy has enough coming back and Mount Carmel has enough coming back that they're both going to be solid again.
Yep. Now, switching gears a little bit, as a coach for as long as you've been a coach, what do you think of the NIL, the name, image, and likeness thing for high school and college?
I think I don't agree with it at all. And I can tell you that when I talk to college coaches, they don't like the NIL. They would never say that publicly because it would hurt their recruiting.
Oh, yeah.
Because they can't tell, they can't come out and say publicly they don't like the NIL or they don't like the transfer portal and then expect kids to want to go to their school.
Yeah.
Because in this day and age, college kids are all about those two things, unless you're going to a D3 school.
Yeah.
But anything Division II and above, kids are looking for money. Now they may not get NIL money in Division II.
Yeah.
But they can get some scholarship money, and then they also have the opportunity to go in the portal. So I actually had a couple of the coaches from the PSAC, recently, Pennsylvania Conference, which is a very, very solid, very strong Division II conference. The only problem with the PSAC is they're kind of handcuffed because most of those schools don't have a full complement of scholarships. Yeah. They have a certain amount of scholarship money and they have to break it up.
Yep, and everybody gets partials and very seldom does somebody get a full.
Right. So that's the one thing that hurts them. But recently I've heard comments from them that, they feel like junior colleges now.
Yeah.
Because kids will go to a Division II school, and if it's one of their top recruits or one of their better players or whatever, they'll give them a partial scholarship. They'll go in there, and if they do really well for a year or two, they're gonna get an opportunity to go to the 1AA level or the the FCS level, and then so they're gonna leave.
Yeah.
And you can't blame the kid if he has to pay half of his tuition right now, and he knows he can go to the next level and get a full scholarship. They're gonna go.
Well, not just that, but if he could go anywhere, like say somebody goes to East Stroudsburg and Bloomsburg says, hey, we'll let you come here for free. I mean,
Yeah,
at the end of the day, it's all about dollars and cents.
exactly. Yeah, so I don't agree with the NIL at all.
My opinion on the NIL is within the next 2 or 3 years, there's going to be a player bargaining agreement with it, because it's the Wild West.
Yeah.
In Division I college football, it's like the Yankees. You can just write a check and say, come here and play, we'll give you $2 million. A college kid getting $2 million, even if his career stinks, he's going to never have to work really if he takes care of his money.
We have one player remaining in college from that 2019 season, and the only reason is because of COVID. They got an additional year.
Yep.
Well, he was going to be done this year. He's a starting safety at Wisconsin.
Yep.
He was going to be done, and come out this year and be finished, but they gave him $250,000 to come back for one more year. Well,
That's kind of a no-brainer, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, that's not quarterback or wide receiver or defensive end money, but $250,000 is a lot of money.
Nothing to sneeze at. Absolutely, for a 21 or 22-year-old kid.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So he's going back. But, the argument, before this ever started, when I would hear, because I listened to a lot of the shows and podcasts and things with college football and the NFL and so forth, and a lot of these guys were talking about, they were all for it. Oh, the players should get paid. These colleges are making tons of money. Why shouldn't the players be able to get some of it? Why? Because they're going to school. It's a college, they're going to school, number one. Number two, they're getting a free scholarship, which is worth
$500,000 at least.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars in this day and age. And they're like, why should other people benefit from it? Well, I know for a fact, this is not guesswork or, somebody just made this up. This is factual information because it's out there and you can get it. Okay, so Penn State is one of the best revenue football programs in the country. They're right up there in the top 5 in the country. Now, they don't make a ton off of basketball, but they make some good money off wrestling. They're the 3 sports that generate revenue for them: basketball, wrestling, and football. Football the most by far.
I think their hockey team does now because it's established and there's a lot of money in hockey.
Yeah,
but before their hockey team, you're absolutely 1,000% right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So even before their basketball got a little bit better and the wrestling came on, now wrestling, the last few years has been tremendous. But I know for a fact, all that extra money, instead of having to give that to athletes who just got a scholarship, all that extra money was being used to pay for all the other athletic programs.
Absolutely.
And there's only a handful of colleges in the entire country who generated enough from some of their sports to pay for all the other sports. Yep. So these people that were out there whining about, this is lining some wealthy alumni's pocket or administrators' pockets, that's nonsense. It was going to pay for the sports in the college for the other sports.
Because how much money do you think the Penn State track team makes for them? Nothing. It costs them a lot of money because the track team's big. You got to suit all them kids up. So when you think about what you just said about, but I also heard that like one home game will take care of all the other athletic departments money-wise.
That's not true. No, it costs way too much money to run your entire athletic department.
Yeah.
But they were like almost self-sufficient, where they were generating enough money in athletics to pay for the rest. But there's not many in the country that were like that. At least I think that's an over-exaggeration.
Yeah.
I've even seen presentations where people got information directly from Penn State, and it showed what they were generating,
Wow.
and where where the money was going to the athletic programs and so forth.
Yep.
So now again, things are in transition. So this NIL, I'm not saying that the money that they were generating in the athletic department was going to NIL, but that's the direction it's going now, because now they started this revenue sharing.
Yeah.
Off of a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit, they started revenue sharing where every school is going to have a couple $1 million to work with from this lawsuit, and that's equal across the board. So now there's a bunch of questions about, well, what happens with these private donors and the other NIL money? What happens with that? Are there any regulations on that? At this point, there still aren't.
No, it's the Wild West.
So they can
and that's where the regulator, somebody has to come in and regulate it. And I think it's going to be a union, so they can make money too.
Yeah.
It's all about money.
Right.
I mean, no matter how you slice it, there's nobody going to come in there and go, oh, we can do this for free. Come on.
Right. and the thing is, the people that were pushing for the kids to get money that was being generated, that's still not going to the players. That money's been coming from NIL, and the first money that's being channeled directly through the universities that starts this year is that revenue sharing program.
Yep.
And that's coming again from that suit that they settled. So like all that money that comes into the Penn State football program is still being used to pretty much pay for, the costs in the funding the athletic department. But that's what people, were claiming, that were really pushing for this NIL stuff, that the kids should be entitled to some of this money because they're responsible for making it. Well, that's just, it's a school. It's not a business.
Yeah.
So they're responsible because they're playing the sport, and the sport.
But there's nobody twisting their arm to go out there and do that.
Exactly.
If you don't want to take a chance on busting your knee, then don't play.
And if you don't feel that scholarship, it's not worth what you have to put into that athletic program, don't take the scholarship. They'll find somebody else that will.
Exactly. There's 10,000 guys like that are waiting for that opportunity.
Yeah. And the transfer portal is also is just crazy.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt they won't come out and admit it 100%, but the Nick Sabans and some of these coaches that have gotten out recently, one of the things that pushed them out probably a little bit before they were ready is they didn't want to have to deal with all this.
It was the last straw, I think. And then when that came along, they were like, I'm peace out. I'll go set on ESPN.
Even basketball, some of these big time basketball guys that have stepped down. The guy at Villanova, I think it was pretty much known that he didn't want to have to deal with this anymore.
Another part that the money comes from to pay these players is like car dealers and different sponsors to say, oh, we'll give Joe $100,000 to come here, and you get four or five companies that he's going to make a commercial for, and he's getting paid. I mean, it goes back to being a no-brainer. Like if you're going to pay a 19, 20, 21-year-old kid hundreds of thousands of dollars for something.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I know I've heard recently, like if you're in even like let's say a top 20 program, and you want to try to get one of the top 20 quarterbacks in the country and keep them, like how many $1 million it's going to cost you just for that one position. Now that position is going to cost you more than any others, but still, to put it all into perspective, you're talking a significant amount of money. What were they saying last year? There was a number thrown out that last year alone, Ohio State spent about $20 million in NIL money on their players, somewhere in that neighborhood. So, and there's a lot of, Division I schools that can't generate that kind of money.
No, and that's why you're going to have the haves and the have-nots, and it's not going to be close. It's going to be these 10 teams and the other 98 teams or whatever.
The only way it will change some, and it can change for some schools, like a school like Texas A&M, which is from an area that has a huge amount of wealth and oil money. Like they've always been good, but they might be able to catch up to the top 10 and make a run of the national title because they can generate a lot of money in their program. So they can compete with the big boys.
Yeah.
And there may be some other ones in different areas of the country that are in locations where there's a lot of money and they may be able to generate a lot of NIL money.
Yep.
Or you have a storied program like Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And just because of Notre Dame's alumni and the history of the program, they're going to be able to generate a lot of money. You know, so, but like you're saying, you're going to have a lot that just aren't going to be able to. The other one that went from, you know, like a much lesser
mediocre
level
team to a great
Division I program to the top real quick is SMU, again, because there's a lot of money there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money in Texas, so they were able to do it very quick.
Yep. And then what do you think of football today as opposed to when you started coaching football? How has it changed, and has it changed for the better?
I mean, there's a lot of things you could talk about, but I just think our society and, you know, the overall culture that you live in is different than it used to be. And now if you were talking to a coach in an urban area or an inner city area, you know, their take on things might be a little different than ours here.
Yeah.
I mean, I think things have changed everywhere, but I can only speak to what we've experienced here. You know, kids are not raised generally with the kind of work ethic they used to be. Like when I first started here in the 80s, I would say that, you know, probably 3/4 of our team, kids came from an environment where they either grew up on a farm, or if they didn't, they worked on a farm.
Yep.
One or the other. I would say 3/4 were involved with farm work in one way or another. So with that one item alone, you were getting kids that had just a different work ethic and mindset than you do today. Today, the amount of kids that you could say came from the farms or, you know, did farm work, and, you know, we're a very rural district, is much, much less. You know, there are just many more families that live in the district now. The Elysburg area has grown as far as new homes and so forth, but you just don't have as many people involved in farming in the district. You don't have as many kids involved in farming. So that's one way that it's changed. So I you know, the kids don't have the same sense of responsibility and accountability that they once had, and that affects their work ethic, you know, and they just don't grow up doing the hard work as much as they used to. So, you know, some people say, well, the kids are different, you know, the kids in this and that. Well,
they're a product of their environment.
They are different, but deep down, they're not that much different. So what we have to do, and what we've been able to do, is regardless of where they came from or what their mindset was in some of these areas, some of these character traits that are important in having a successful program, we have to help develop some of that. You know, just because some of them just haven't had the, you know, haven't been exposed to it and haven't had the experience where they've had to, you know, do a hard job and do a lot of work and be accountable and those types of things. So, you know, you and this word gets thrown around all the time, but it is a very important aspect, especially in a football program, and that's culture. And if you have a culture where those areas are going to be part of your program, regardless of where the kid came from, they've got to learn to start adhering to those characteristics and qualities if they're going to be successful in your program. Item number 2, that's a lot different, is just the outside influences, parental influences, and social media. And it's all kind of intertwined, you know, because people see more now, they hear more now, they make more noise. And so, you know, we talk to our kids about, Nick Saban refers to it as rat poison. That's what he calls it. But we talk to our kids about blocking out the noise. And you can't buy into that stuff, and you can't be looking at it, and you can't be listening to it. You've got to keep your focus in-house, and that's what you need to be concerned about. But yeah, the social media today, and you know, these are young kids, and nobody plays a freshman schedule anymore. So like we used to mainly be 10 through 12 on varsity. Well, now we're 9 through 12. So we're getting these young 9th graders coming up, and you know, not many 9th graders are going to jump right on the field and be a starter on varsity, but you know, they're young and they're part of the program, and they start getting on social media and hearing this and that about the program. And
Yeah.
because, there is a lot of support when you have a successful program, but there's also a lot of haters. And that just comes with the territory.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of Yankee haters out there.
Oh yeah, a lot of Patriot haters.
A lot of Patriot haters.
Dallas haters.
There's a lot of Dallas haters, even though they haven't won at a high level for a long time, just because with a program like that, they were very successful at one time, but they're just the kind of organization and program. They just annoy people.
Yeah, they have a certain arrogance about them.
Yes. Yeah. And just the way Jerry goes about things, he turns a lot of people off.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and like you said about being accountable, when I coached football, it was if I could make a kid a better man, that's your job. And football is kind of like a byproduct of making the kids better. So when you send all the kids that you touch as a coach and you send them out in the world and they're prosperous in society, then you've done your job. The football part is a byproduct of that. Don't you feel that way inside?
When people have brought that issue up about, the effect that you've had on kids, they've gone through the program and so forth. I've always said, if you run the program the right way, that, you can't help but have an effect on their development.
Yep.
Because they're gonna have to deal with being part of that organization over a 3 or 4 year period, and it's going to have an effect on them.
Yep, and it's going to have the ups and downs, the heartbreaks, the great times, and it's going to be like a whole lifetime of stuff stuffed in them 4 years or here.
And I've always said, if you do things the right way, not only are they going to become better people from being part of the program, but the winning's going to take care of itself.
Exactly. That's going to be a byproduct of what you do behind the scenes.
We don't sit around and worry about winning and losing and this and that. It's like you just go out day to day and try to focus on what you need to do today. And it's a cliche, but I guarantee you there are a lot of programs that don't operate that way. There are a lot of programs where people are looking ahead, they're looking back, they're not making sure that the kids are focused on the here and now. But that whole concept is a little harder today also, again, because of the social media.
Yep.
Because, they'll be going on these social media, sites now in the preseason, and there'll be all kinds of talk on there about who's going to win, who's going to make a run of the state title, and who's going to do this, and who's going to do that. And they're reading all this stuff about, playoffs at the end of the year, and can Southern beat Troy this year? Is Troy going to be, good enough to make another, and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
They're reading that, and we're trying to get them ready for the first scrimmage.
Exactly.
So
they're really putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah. And you got to try to pull that stuff out of their head and say, you don't want to worry about all that. Now, I will say, I learned one of the best talks I ever heard at a clinic was one by Pete Carroll. It was many years ago. He was at USC. And I was never one about looking ahead. But he did a talk at a Nike clinic in Allentown. And I still remember to this day, a lot of his talk had to do with, you don't want your players looking ahead, but you've got to have long-term goals, and you got to talk to them about, what do they want to see themselves doing at the end of the season? How far, and so I know a number of years ago, that was something that we started to do, is every now and then you would have a little discussion here or there, and you would talk about, you got to see yourself standing on that field at Hershey. It's not Hershey anymore, but it used to be. Standing on that field at Hershey, holding that trophy up. And if you don't see yourself doing that, and if you don't have a burning desire to get that feeling, then of course, once you win some of them, and you talk about those kind of things, you're doing it over a period of time, you're always talking to kids that have experienced it. So that has acted as a motivator. So that's what we tried to feed off of when we've had these stretches where we've won a number, consecutively. We tried to feed off, not looking ahead, but you got to have a burning desire to get back to that same point and have that same feeling at the end of the year. And the only way you do that is to buckle down every day and work hard and stay focused on the here and now.
And it's like I tell kids a lot. I say, you got to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, then who's going to believe in you?
Yeah.
You know, it all starts with you. Now, there's a fine line between being arrogant and cocky, but you have to have belief in yourself, or you might as well just not get out of bed during the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the confidence has to be there.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we're trying to get that kid to make the next step, you know, you always try to get him to work in the off season and become more, you know, better athletes, better football players. But then mentally, once the season starts and you watch them start to go out and practice and compete and so forth, you know, sometimes you see where they've gotten bigger, they've gotten, you know, stronger, maybe they look more athletic, a little faster, but yet there's, you know, you can see that they still aren't playing with confidence.
Yep.
And so...
And they got all the tools, they just don't got it in here.
And sometimes, you know, you just try to lead them along and get it to kick in. And then for most kids...
Some of them do. And
some of them, it sometimes, you know, sometimes it doesn't happen. Usually it does if they've become better athletes, because eventually they, you know, it hits them that, hey, now I can do this or I can do that. And they start to get a little more confidence, and it has an effect. But
and the kids surrounding them can boost them up too. How many times have you seen that in your career, where kids don't have much confidence, but the guys around him say, you can do this, and then he makes a few plays, and then you don't have to worry about it no more.
Yep, and you can see it kind of click for them.
Absolutely, the light bulb pops on, boom.
They start playing at a little different level.
Yep.
The other thing I would say about one of the things that was a cornerstone of our program over the years, and I think it's real important, and again, I don't think programs always do this. Sometimes coaches really focus on their top players. They figure, well, our top players are the guys that are going to get us there. So we really need to make sure that, you know, we highlight them, and we put a lot of emphasis on making sure we get them the ball, and they're the, you know, they're the leaders and so forth and so on. But I've always thought for a long time that we've helped ourselves with our consistency by taking that kid that's a below average or an average athlete or football player and developing those kids. And so when kids come into our program into junior high level, and then when they make the transition to the varsity level, regardless of where they're starting in each of those programs in the beginning, we try to encourage and coach, you know, every kid like they eventually could be a key starter for us at the varsity level. That's the ultimate goal. So I just think it's really important, and that's where you make a living, because when you're in a small school, you're not going to get a bunch of elite athletes and elite football players year in and year out.
Nope. Sometimes you got to make chicken salad out of chicken crap. And that's just the way it goes in small school football.
That's where you make the difference. You know, we sit back every year and talk about, you know, kids that are graduating or kids that have in the last year or two that have just come a long way. And you got to have a number of kids do that on a regular basis if you're going to maintain a high level of success, because you don't have enough kids that just walk in the door with enough athletic ability that you just put them on the field and it happens.
Yep.
So we really put a lot of emphasis into trying to, you know, make sure we encourage those kids to work in the off season, and make sure we give them the reps in practice and, you know, in games. Playing a lot of games every year in playoff runs.
And that has helped you and Troy a lot. I've seen it.
Yep.
Bright, like a big light bulb. They mercy rule by halftime, and the JVs get to go out there and play a half of varsity football for 9 or 10 games. That's gigantic. Yeah. Anybody that doesn't know anything about football, that's enormous for them kids.
Junior high level, we try to play a lot of kids. We put more emphasis on development and playing time. Overall, more emphasis on development than we do winning at the junior high level. We're still trying to win, but we're trying to make sure that we get good playing time for all the kids and really be able to evaluate them.
Yeah.
But when you play in a state championship game, compared to a team that plays a regular season, you played another half a season.
Yeah. Almost, at this point, almost another full season. Because you're playing another 6 or 7 games. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yep. So it definitely helps your young kids, because they have that much more. Because let's face it, football is a sport that baseball, soccer, basketball, there's a number of sports. A lot of the other sports you can play outside of the season just like
you
you
can
play
year
in
round.
season.
Yep.
Wrestling, you can't do that with football.
Nope.
You can train, you can do some 7-on-7 stuff. You can get, work on your speed. You can get, bigger and stronger, but you can't play the game of football.
Nope.
You only get to play the game of football during the season.
Yep. And what do you think about 7-on-7s?
I think they're beneficial. I mean, we don't put a ton of stock in them, and we probably don't do as many as some schools do. But I think they're beneficial because regardless of what you say about, okay, it's not realistic football because you don't have a line there. I think right off the top, they're very good for the defense because in this day and age, with everybody running a lot of spread stuff and throwing the ball a lot over the course of a season, you're going to see a lot of passing game with multiple formations and a lot of spread offenses. So it's giving your secondary and your linebackers a lot of work on getting lined up versus various formations and working against different passing concepts and so forth. So you're giving your defense a lot of work that certainly carries over. Now, when you get on the offensive side of things, it's just skewed a little bit for your quarterback because you can't simulate the feel of
getting your head knocked off.
Can't simulate the feel of a real passing play, passing play in a game because there's no rush there.
Yep.
So, you're getting your quarterback to rep his mechanics because he is dropping back and throwing the ball.
Yep, and that's a muscle memory that he will take when there is a rush. He can he can do the right steps and deliver the football if he needs to. And
he gets to rep his progression because you're still you're getting pass coverage from an opponent. So okay, number one's not open. I got to look at number two. So you're getting him to do those types of things.
And you don't have to worry about getting killed. So it becomes not muscle memory, but brain memory. All right, he's covered. Oh, this guy's open. If he goes to the third one, you know what I mean? But I agree 100%. I look at it almost identically like you do. That for the defense, it works good. And for the receiver, it works good too because they're actually getting covered. And can they get open? Can they get the guy off them?
And they're getting more attention in coverage than they do in the regular season
a million times
because there's no threat of the run.
Yeah.
So the defenders are all just locked in on pass coverage.
Yep. And if you can get away from them guys and hand fight your way away from them, it's going to come in handy later in the season.
That's why a big part of our passing game over the years when we've had success is play action. Because if we have a strong running game, that play action is going to be effective.
Yep, you open up that space behind them linebackers like crazy.
It doesn't matter how much they coach the kids up during the week about when they show you this backfield action, we got to stay back. We got to make sure they're not running deep routes or this or that. Well, guess what?
Then we're going to get 7 yards to carry.
If you have enough success running the football against high school kids, whatever they tell them about staying back and ignoring the run, eventually it goes out the window.
Yep.
They're going to start peeking, they're going to start attacking, and you're going to get behind people. It's just the nature of it.
Yeah. Now the question everybody wants to know, how much longer are you going to do this?
I have no plans as far as numbers. I always tell people 1 year at a time.
Yep.
It's if I feel if I still have the energy and the passion to do it, and I don't have any serious health problems, I just look at it like 1 year at a time.
Yep.
And see how things go. It's just one of those things I really enjoy doing, and so I'm not looking at it as far as age. Some people may put an age on it. I look at it more from just how I am mentally and physically.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm approaching it and how I feel and how well I can still keep doing the job. I don't want to be like I've seen some older coaches who were very successful coaches that stayed on to the point where they really couldn't do a whole lot.
Yeah.
And
it kind of tarnishes their legacy.
Almost everybody else was doing everything, and they were just kind of there as a figurehead. Yeah. I really won't want to be around at that point.
Yeah.
And I always, in the back of my mind too, I always think about how some of the legendary coaches, how it's ended poorly for them. You know, like you look at people like Jazz Diminick from Mount Carmel and George Curry at Berwick and Dick Purnell at Shikellamy. These are Bill Scott at Selinsgrove. These are some of the most successful coaches in the history of District 4 or this region.
Yeah.
And they all got fired. They all got fired because, you know, it's school board politics. You know, if you get 5 people on a school board that want to change,
don't like you, then it's curtains for you.
Yep, that's it.
Don't matter how good of your winning percentage. Well, Montgomery's a great example.
Yeah.
Corey had them turn the corner, and people didn't like the way he did things, and he's out after going to the playoffs.
I'm very, very familiar with that situation because one of our former assistants is now the head coach.
Yep.
Joel Knoble is the head coach there now, and he was one of our assistants. So, yeah, that's the nature of it. And I don't know exactly what happened there, but I talked to him a few times.
Yeah.
About it. You know, the coach that was let go there.
Yeah.
But you know, some of these other guys I'm talking about, like George Curry, you know, he got fired from Berwick. He got let go.
And he's a Pennsylvania legend.
Yeah.
If somebody's going to fire him, Christ, there's nobody safe. You know what I mean?
And Diminick from Mount Carmel was the same way. Jazz Diminick is in the National Hall of Fame, not just the State Hall of Fame, the National Hall of Fame.
Yep.
They fired him, and one of the, you know, it was you know, again, it's school board politics.
Yep. And it's everywhere. It's rampant. Whenever you have politics, you have it.
And
in athletics, they just don't mix very well sometimes.
One of the things when you said about how it's changed over the years, you know, the social media, but also just the nature of how parents go about things. You know, in this day and age, you'll get parents who, you know, have it in for a coach and don't like a coach, and they'll try to get support from other parents and board members, and it's so easy to communicate with others now because of social media.
Yep.
And they will eventually get to school board members and sway a school board, because a lot of times when these decisions are made where coaches are let go and it's really not justified, it's because of parental pressure. It comes from the parents.
Absolutely.
And then the parents they make enough noise and have enough of an effect that eventually the school board buys into it and they get rid of them. You could make the same analogy in college. It's not necessarily parents, but it's alumni. And it's wealthy alumni, and they get disgruntled with the way a program's going.
And they say you're not going to get your 100,000 this year if you don't get rid of him.
And they start making noise, and the board of trustees that controls a university, they then go to the athletic department and say he's got to go. You know, but it all starts, you know, with the fans in the community.
Yep.
And then it goes to the donors, and then the alumni, these alumni groups, because the alumni groups are the ones that really have a lot of influence in college.
Yep.
And then eventually it works its way into the administration, and they make a change. So
one more question and we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
Jim Roth, what would you like your legacy to be of?
See, I've been asked that a couple of times, and that's one of those things that I have no thoughts or concern about legacy. I've always approached it like the only person that I'm concerned about pleasing or having a legacy that I'm okay with is with myself. Like I've always looked at it like, if I feel I'm doing things the right way and I'm happy about the way I'm doing things, I don't care about legacy, because there's so many. It's like we talked before about like if you have success, there are so many haters out there. So regardless of how you run your program or how much success you've had, you're always going to have a certain group of people out there that are going to be negative towards you and your program.
Yep.
So to me, that's a tarnish on legacy right off the top, but it's like, I don't like, I'm happy with what I've done in the program, what we've done in the program, because it takes so many, and the effect we've had on kids. And so if I can feel good about that when I go to bed at night, and our assistants can feel good about that, it's like whatever other people think, we don't really
Doesn't
care.
matter. Yeah.
But I really think, if I had to say, what would please me the most about how other people perceive the program is just that we had, amazing consistency, and we tried to do the right things on a regular basis over an extremely long period of time, decades, and that had a positive effect on our kids, both on and off the field. And on the field's easy to measure.
Yep.
Because you just look at the records and things like that. But yeah, just trying to do things the right way. Like we don't allow our coaches and our kids to like curse at practice and do things where they become out of control and act inappropriately. And we try to teach them that, that if you act the right way as a human being, those positive character traits as a person will carry over onto the field, and you're going to have more success on the field, and that it's important how other people look at you, those kinds of things.
And watching several of your teams over the past bunch of years, you can definitely see that you're teaching that to them, because the other team will get in their face or whatever, and your guys will just walk away.
Yeah.
And that's just priceless. And it's saving humility, because look how you'd look if you reacted to them people,
Right. And again, having that mindset, that discipline in your behavior, it directly carries over to the way you execute when the ball snapped every play.
Yep.
There's a direct connection there, because you got to have that, that self-discipline. You have to have the discipline to do things, on your own when people aren't there. They always use that phrase about, character is the true measurement of character is what are you doing when other people aren't looking, type of thing. You got to have that self-discipline that you can stay disciplined even when somebody's not pushing you. You just push yourself.
Yep.
And, when you get out there on the field, you got to have the discipline to play in and play out, to do your best and walk away from nonsense. And even if somebody does get you frustrated, you just kind of bite your tongue and figure, hey, I'll do my talking on the field.
Yep, exactly.
Next play, I'll make a difference on the field, and that will mean more than saying some nonsense back to the player. Because really, when people are, when it happens where a guy's getting a cheap shot or somebody's trash talking him, they're trying to get in their head and they're trying to get to him. So to stay calm, stay focused within the game, you're doing exactly what they don't want you to do.
Exactly.
Instead of buying into it.
Yep. All right, Jim Roth, the great Jim Roth. I really appreciate you taking time for PA Football News and doing this interview. It's been an honor to sit here and talk to you.
Well, I'm happy to do it, and thanks for the kind words and for your support of the program. Yep. And your organization support of the program over the years, and what you do for high school football, because I know it's not easy to put all that information into the program and into the site. It's got to take a lot of work, and I know people aren't making a lot of money doing it.
Nope, they do it because they have a passion.
Right.
Because they love it.
Yep.
And that's why I do what I do, because I love it. And I want fans, because I'm one of them fans that used to sit there and go, man, I wonder what kind of personality this coach has.
Yeah.
And reading a couple lines in the paper, you get no idea. But to see a video of a guy sitting there chatting, you got a good idea. Man, that guy's a good guy, And I think that this platform that we have to work with will grow and grow, and it'll make high school football just even better than it's ever been.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of people that, well, because the way technology is, how many people go on the site and so forth.
Yeah.
And use it.
Yep. Well, I appreciate it, Jim, and good luck this season.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate you.